And so, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and jump right into this one because the socialists have come from behind the curtain. They are no longer worried about how they're being perceived. We've seen them gain power in the Democrat Party. We definitely understand that they have the influence in the Democrat Party. That was made perfectly clear during the New York primaries where Hakeem Jeffries endorsed candidates versus Mamdani endorsed candidates, and Mamdani's endorsed candidates won. And now you see several other states with socialist representatives popping up looking to take out what you could call the establishment Democrats, whether it be Wisconsin, Michigan, Washington, D.C., and obviously the places where they're already established, such as in Seattle, Chicago, and of course, New York City. As a result of the Democrat Party becoming weak enough, the socialists have gone full mask off about their true intentions. And so the next phase has been this media tour, this media blitz, where they're on television to make their argument to the American people about what their goals and what their plans are. And the more they talk, the more it becomes very easy to understand and realize just how dangerous these people are and what they want to do to this country. And so we got to get into this. We have the New York Democratic Socialist co-chair speaking, and it was an absolute, it was a shit show, ladies and gentlemen. And so let's start right here.
I've been here for a very long time, and these things come and go. Mayor Adams actually removed the homeless encampments from the streets because they're not safe for the people who live there. And they're not safe for the people who live around them.
The problem we're facing in our housing system is that we talk about tenants and we say they have to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. They have to be responsible financially. But when we look at the landlords, we don't use those same standards. Landlords in New York have been making a 12% return on their investment on average.
How much should they make? What's fair for the landlord to make if you don't like 12?
They're complaining that 12 is not enough. And we don't think that anyone should have a constitutional right to double-digit returns on their investment. That's why we've implemented...
No one should have a right to a double-digit return on their investment.
No one has a right. That's not...
What are you talking about?
That's not in the Constitution, but what we see is that when we implement a rent freeze, we have landlords who are crying that the government is going to put them out of business.
They're trying to run a business, and they're trying to do it effectively. No, are all landlords perfect? Are some landlords lousy? Of course they are. But I just think that the idea that no one should make a double-digit profit is the antithesis of the desire to, you can be anything you want to be in New York. I actually...
All right, and so let me go and stop it right there. I got to make a few points. Number one, this is exactly what happens when you have people who have no clue on how business actually functions. No utter clue on how business works, ladies and gentlemen. This is what it looks like. Exhibit A. That's number one. Number two, he wants to paint an image where all landlords are these corporate giants who are making millions of dollars. And of course, that exists. We're not pretending that does not exist. But what he's doing, this is what the socialists like to do. They want to just make it a narrow box of this is what ownership looks like. This is what it looks like when people own things, which completely erases the little guy, the family-owned business, the person who's just trying to make something out of nothing. And so Mamdani's rent freeze that he wants to push, it's going to have the greatest effect on those people because they don't have the safety net that, these corporations have to be able to eat the cost of a rent freeze. But this is what we see from the socialists. They operate in a world where if you own anything, you are inherently evil. Private property ownership, it's evil to them. And that's dangerous for anyone who believes or buys into what these people are saying. And so that's something that Stephen A. Smith made a point about. And so let's jump into this clip right here. Take a listen to this.
We damn sure don't want to be a socialist nation. This ain't Denmark. This ain't Finland. This ain't Sweden. This is the United States of America. You roll over to these borders with the vision and the fantasy and the passion that, here I can achieve anything. I ain't trying to be like everybody else. I'm trying to be one-on-one. That's what this is about in America. We don't talk about that enough when it comes to the socialists. Because they're convincing folks that rather than individuals being a problem, rather than lobbyists being a problem, They're trying to convince you America's a problem while their asses are over here profiting from the American system. And the Democrats with their spineless, weak, feckled selves are allowing it to happen.
Exactly. The socialists benefit off of this very system while at the same time talking about tearing it down. And that brings us to this very next clip, ladies and gentlemen. Take a listen to this.
Democratic Socialists starting to look ahead to the 2028 presidential race after victories in this year's congressional primaries. Their agenda includes getting rid of the United States Senate, letting Congress choose an executive and judiciary to replace the president and the Supreme Court, amnesty for all immigrants, ending deportations, defunding the Department of War, a wealth tax, and passing a Green New Deal, among others issues there that you see up on the board. So with that, we bring in Gustavo Cordillo, co-chair of the New York City Democratic Socialists of America. Thank you for joining us. Obviously, this is a really hot topic right now.
Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you for being here. We were just talking in the break, and we were saying hello to each other. Your family came here from Peru, really in the middle of the heat of the Shining Path. They were Maoist communist guerrillas in Peru. So why did your family come to America?
The economic situation in South America and in Peru was in a really bad place. But I think that much of what we could say is responsible for that actually was the imposition of capitalism, and American imperialism in many cases is actually what brings immigrants to the U.S. coming out of Latin America. And
so they come here because they don't like the imposition of American imperialism in the country that they're in?
Yes, in many countries.
So they come here.
In many countries, there have been undemocratic coups that have destabilized countries, and that's pushed people out.
Oh, well, you would think they would want to go somewhere that wasn't imposing that on them if that were the case. But
okay, and so let me stop it right there. Let's break this down. So it's the American imperialism that destroyed Latin American countries. We'll take that at face value, and just so that way we can go along with his logic. The American imperialism destroyed the Latin American countries, forcing those who were native to that land to flee towards the American imperialism by coming to America. Make that make sense, ladies and gentlemen. And so understand the logic he's using, that this country, America, so bad, so terrible, his parents decided to flee their country and come here for a better life. But let's go ahead and jump into this next part where the DSA unveils their radical push to eliminate the Senate, and listen to the logic behind why they believe it to be necessary. Take a listen to this.
You know, it's interesting because the Shining Path, if you look at what they wanted to overthrow the democratic institutions in Peru. They wanted to abolish capitalism in Peru. And we see some of those same threads in the DSA in terms of what it stands for. And one of the things is very basic. You know, we've just celebrated the 250th anniversary of the country. And one of the most basic things is Article 1 in our Constitution. Are you in favor of abolishing Article 1 of the Constitution?
No, we support a democratic route to transformative change in the United States. We think that we need to put the working class before the billionaire class.
So you don't want to abolish the Senate, the United States Senate, because that's what Article 1 is.
The United States Senate is an undemocratic institution. It gives more representation to people in smaller states than to the 30 million people in California.
So you've got the House of Representatives, which is population-driven, and then you've got the Senate. So every state, if you're a small state, you still get 2 senators, even though you only get maybe 1 congressman.
All right, and so let's go ahead and break this down, because this is what the socialists love to try and sell you, that they are against authoritarianism. It's not that they're against authoritarianism, it's that they are against it when it does not work in their favor, which is why they want to get rid of the Senate. And they want to have mob rule, where the larger states have more control and get to dictate what happens across the entire country. But let's go ahead and continue, because this is where he compares abolishing slavery to abolishing the Senate. Take a listen.
In order to make all of the states have fair representation. So you say, I'm just confused.
When you ask normal Americans if Congress and the Senate and our political system is working for them, most people are very unhappy with the political system, and they say it's not working for them. When we think about the 250th anniversary of the United States, and we think about our proudest moments in US history, I think of times like when ordinary people rose up and they changed the Constitution to abolish slavery, to give women the right to vote.
Everyone's proud of that.
And
that's a nationwide pride in the country.
But back in those moments, those were considered radical movements because those people dared to say we need transformative change in the United States.
Right.
And I
well,
think
we
that
struggle to become a more perfect union. But I just want to ask you again, do you want to abolish the United States Senate? Because you said you approve of Article 1, but then you said you didn't think the Senate works.
We think that the Senate should be reformed, that we should have a more democratic government system. But that's a long-term change that we're seeking. And in the short term, we're focused on issues like affordability.
Yeah, so let me go in and translate this. His idea of a more democratic governing system is one where you don't actually have equal representation. He wants one where there's actually less representation. That's why the DSA wants to get rid of the Senate. Our founding fathers were thinking about not letting mob rule take over, where it was simply, okay, we are the majority, therefore we're going to dictate and control everything that happens, and that's it. This is why we have a balance between not just a full-out democracy, but also a republic where you have representation. And what I find so interesting about that is the only reason that these people feel so empowered to believe that this is actually a better direction is because they believe they have control of the high-density cities and states in this country. California, Chicago, New York. They believe that they are in control. They have the numbers. Therefore, we're all for a democracy where it's the majority rule. Do you think they would be feeling the same way if it was in reverse? I don't think so.
But in the short term, we're focused on affordability. We're focused on a working class economic agenda.
The question is, how does the government become more democratized if the government takes over more of the power? So, for example, here in New York, if you have government-owned grocery stores, right? And that was what Mamdani promised. I know you were supportive of his election, and I interviewed him here. So they're up like breaking ground on one grocery store so far. It's going to cost $30 million to build a grocery store. In what world does it make sense to build a $30 million grocery store and put competitive pressure on the bodegas that are in the neighborhood?
I think that what we saw in the mayoral campaign is the mayor was able to build a movement that inspired people to believe that we could have a government that works for ordinary people, that is actually responsive to the working class.
The inspiration is great, but if you're the bodega owner, how would you feel? If the government opened a big grocery store right next to your bodega,
If one publicly owned grocery store that brings prices down in the neighborhood is enough to put someone out of business, then maybe they shouldn't have been in that business in the first place.
Wow. And so DSA co-chair of New York City just told bodega owners everywhere, if you can't beat a government-run grocery store, you probably shouldn't be in business. Now, the part he won't mention is the fact that the government-run grocery store has a laundry list of advantages that this private business, the small business owner, does not have. And that's why it's hard to compete, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, and here are a list of the advantages that the city-run grocery store would have. No normal rent burden. The city would own the land and cover major overhead costs, such as rent. Here's another one. No ordinary property tax burden passed through to the store. That's something that private and commercial tenants have to worry about, paying property tax costs directly or indirectly through rent. Taxpayer-funded construction. Mamdani secured $70 million in city capital funds to build his 5 locations. Subsidized food prices, which means the prices do not reflect the full cost of operation. A private business must cover rent, payroll, utilities, insurance, etc., while the government-run grocery store does not have to worry about any of that. And so I'm gonna leave it right here. These people are showing you exactly who they are. They believe and they want to convince those who are willing to listen that ownership is evil. If you own property, if you own a business, it is inherently evil. That's why you don't hear DSA talking about how they're for business growth. They're for opportunity. They'll throw in how we're okay with capitalism. We want capitalism. No, they don't want capitalism. They want to be able to take advantage and control capitalism. Oh, you don't deserve. You shouldn't be making 12% return. You don't deserve that. It should be less. We want to control that. These are the things that these people stand for and they believe in. And it's a hazard and a danger to this country. But you let me know your thoughts on this. Drop your comments down below. I appreciate when you guys join in. Don't forget you enjoy the content. Smash that thumbs up for more. Subscribe to the channel. And as always, until next time.